Once again, we're with Diane Sharpe, 1999 Woolmer's for Girls graduate. Diana, I have a lot of questions, so let's just get this going. This is some funny questions. So vibe with me and see if you can work with me. So Diana, I have this vision in my mind that in the really really olden days, men really used to go out and get the bacon, and the woman done the child rearing. Period. So that dependency was like this. Sorry, really a big deal. And I believe things have changed so much with agriculture and all of this stuff that's going on that no longer does the man have to go out and kill anything to eat. And both species, male and female, can go into Kroger's, Tom Thumb, Albertsons, and the Canadian equivalent, Walmart or whatever, and buy their own bacon, sliced as they like it. The necessity for wanting a man in the household has waned. Do you agree with that?
So I,
Wow.
I agree. So I agree. I agree with the presentation. I agree with the visuals that you're painting. I agree with the reality. Do I believe in the philosophy or the principle of what you're espousing? No, I don't. No, the presence of a man, um, what the man brings to the relationship, the protection of the male, the provision of the male, it doesn't change. And for me, it has not changed in the sense that I don't believe that should have changed or wane. But you're right. The dynamics have shifted. It's no longer up here and down here. It's more closer, But do I believe it should be so? I'm one of those old school women that believe in the opposite. I believe it should go back to what it used to be. Or and I'm not saying women should be relegated to working just in the home and just child rearing. Women should do that if that's what they would like to do. But even in the place where women work, men still have that major role, I would say, of going out to get the bacon. And that's not necessarily literally. I don't expect you to kill a pig and roast him and cure him. But I just believe more from a leadership perspective and more from leading the home. Those are my views.
Is that your biblical view or is that Diana Sharp's views?
Diana, Shelley, and Sharp. If I had my way, I'd be a stay-at-home woman.
Okay. So the
No.
reason the reason I the reason I went there is and anyone that knows Roger knows that I like to talk and I hate being with the go along, get along crowd. So I want to be the guy that stands back and say, they're drinking the Jesus juice in Guyana and they died. Roger was the one drinking rum. That I want to be that guy. So with my analogy with the non dependency, over time, do you believe there's an evolution of people now wanting to, the gender split when it was like this? Now that Kroger's and Walmart has everything, you're right here, and now we're in this thing where boys think, sorry, boys are identifying as girls even though they don't have the genitalia, and vice versa. And there's a natural acceptance. And is there going to be a non existence of mankind as we know it just because of the fact that you guys won't allow the man to go and get the bacon or even feel
No.
like he's? Okay.
No, and I don't believe, if you, like, people who know me well will tell you, I don't believe in generalizations and I don't believe in sweeping comments, simply because although
Sorry,
I'm not,
was any of mine generalizing or sweeping?
well, it was a presumptive question because you presumed that boys are not standing in their boyhood and will eventually go into their manhood,
No,
and
no,
that
no, no,
this
no, no, no,
evolution,
no. But
yes.
but the reason I'm saying that is I'm going back to the original question, wherein the role of a man, yeah, to go out and stomp on the rat or catch the spider or face up to the attacker, take a bullet and blah blah. That, when the women are want to take these roles, there's no more pig fighting and whatever and bringing the bacon home. I'm saying now the men are getting softer. There's no need for the aggression and the barking and the lion type of
I
roar in
still,
you.
yeah, I'm going to stand behind my view, and I'm going to say, yes, that's sweeping. And I also believe you're erring on the side of making a generalization. And in a way where you're actually erring in the sense that then if you look at yourself and you look at other men who you know, then you know that there's still a generation of men, albeit older, and then there is a generation of men in my age group, and there is a generation of boys that are still standing in their role of protector, provider, the instilling of discipline in the home, being a presence in the home. I think the real question is it under threat? And it's not just under threat because of, the agrarian revolution or the industrial revolution or World War I and II that saw women move from factories onto war lines. It's a number of factors, Roger. And you're right, the world has evolved significantly. Our jobs have evolved, our roles have evolved. And I think the question we should be asking is, where are we getting our values from? Because all of the jobs and the roles could change, but what happened to our values? And you ask the question, am I speaking from a biblical perspective? Now, the Bible gives the way to live. The Bible set up society for success. The Bible provides instruction in terms of how our society should be structured. And men should be the head of the household, and the man should go out and provide, and the woman should tend to the children. Now, the Bible doesn't say the woman shouldn't do any work. Because when you reflect on the Proverbs 31 woman, and when you reflect on Lydia in Acts, these women worked. Lydia was a seller of purple, which means she was a businesswoman. The Proverbs 31 woman, which is not a real woman, it was Solomon talking to his mother, and his mother was describing a woman that was worthy of Solomon. And that woman worked. She rose early. She took care of her family. She bought things from the ship, the tradesmen. She sold it, and she made a profit. And so, but she was still in charge of the home. And so I believe then we don't have to ask, in light of everything that we have, all the technology, all the advancements, all the Krogers, the Walmarts. I don't believe a Kroger in and of itself or a Walmart emasculates a man. I don't believe that grocery being readily available or meat being readily available or the man not going out to hunt anymore emasculates the man. We have to begin now to examine our principles, our policies, our politics, our positions to
You know
figure out how
that
are we here.
Diana, I hope you, when I use the term get the bacon
Yes,
and it's in Kroger's, I hope you understand the analogy in that.
yes,
What I'm trying to say is a man, even his tone is
yeah,
changing now. Do you
yeah.
think my grandfather was a more, and I'm going to use the manly term because I don't know any other term, was a more manly man than my father? Do you think I'm as manly as my father? And do you think my son is softer than I am? What do you think?
I think it's contextual. It's contextual because sometimes our grandparents didn't always have the right habits and practices, right? So sometimes what then is manly? Maybe your grandfather was impatient. So let's just go back to some good traits. Grandfather,
Before you go on that, I'm gonna put it real softer for you because I'm such a giving guy. My dad would never say to his wife, "Sweetheart, what are we eating tonight? What would you like to eat?" That's a conversation I have with my wife, and that's not good. I'm saying we're losing it, sweetheart. What would you like to eat tonight? Not we have in our kitchen a cook we have to
so
kill it.
Roger, that's just language. That which is what I was getting to. That's just language. So
Okay,
sometimes what we saw and we admired in older people was abuse. The roughness, the
okay.
toughness, the way they treated their wives and their women was abuse, but we didn't know what it was, and women
Did you
didn't know
say
what it was.
women? Did you say the way they treated their women in plural? Like one man had more than one woman, or just
No,
oh, it was a Freud. Okay.
just
Yeah.
in reference to women and men in general.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you go back to some of the principles and some of the things like your grandfather would have done,
Mm-hmm.
the work hard, the get up early, go catch water if needs be, clean him shoes, shine, prepare the family, lecture the boys, beat the boys when them need to get beaten, talk to them, discipline them,
Did you say
cut them here.
beat the boys when they needed to be beaten? Because boys needed to be beaten. Yes, I.
If no, boys and girls,
Okay,
boys and
okay.
girls, but I know back as far back as the 1900s to the 1960s, people were beating their children, right? Maybe even after that. So sometimes boys and girls get a little spank to discipline them, and lots of, the fathers play that kind of role. But if we go back to the qualities of our grandparents and males, then I think the qualities that they may have encouraged or exposed were waking up early, values of hard work, values of, even if you're not going to get a high school education or you're not going beyond grade 9, you must know for count money. You must know how to read and write, know how to write your name on a piece of paper, right? But I believe that sometimes our grandparents, or men even older than our grandparents, didn't always have the language they needed to do some of what they needed to do and to negotiate and to talk. And so there were fewer in words and sometimes maybe even more brash. That doesn't mean, and I think a lot of what we call manly, when the Bible talks about a manly man, the Bible is really referring to a godly man, a man who is a priest. The Bible never said he had to be brash. In fact, the Bible asks the man to love the woman as he loves the church. The Bible says, be a husband to one wife. It says, not a drinker, not given to filthy lucre, right? So you're not giving into your lust and your flesh, and not drunk. It said, be sober minded. So when the Bible talks about a man or a man of good character, a leader, he's really talking about just somebody who is sober. You really don't have to rough up your wife. You can ask her, honey, what are we having? As the priest, because you've already provided. So you never didn't work. You know what would be not manly? Not manly is if you didn't work, you didn't put any structure in your home, you don't know how any bills pay, and then you ask her what's for dinner. So that's not manly. But if you have
But
provided and you've done everything you need
do
to
men like
do,
that exist?
lots of them.
And what sort of women choose those kind of men?
I don't know because I try. Like I try, you know, especially I went to Ghana recently, right? I went to Ghana and we had a really good plural group, a very pluralistic group that people wasn't all Jamaican, all Ghanaian, all Nigerian, and I love that. And I met somebody there who was Nigerian but living in Ghana, and he would talk to us and he would share that and he would say, lots of people, and not just him. There were other people in the group. There was a girl in the group also who shared that people say bad things about Nigerian and Nigerians this and Nigerian that and Nigerian men and everything. And I said, you know what though? It's all about who you surround yourself with, because I don't know those people you're speaking about. And I'm not being, in any way fake or, facetious or anything like that. I'm being truthful. As somebody who, and this can also be because of your circumstances. Sometimes if you're educated or if you work in academia or if you work in certain formal sectors, you're going to meet people like yourself, people who are like educated and doing well. And I said to them, the Nigerians I met are married, and the Nigerians I met are mainly doctors.
That's right.
Most or all of them, they're doctors,
Finest.
accountants, engineers. And so that's my reality. And so the people, when I think about Nigerians, I think about people who are well established. Majority of the Nigerians I met, there are a few who are not of like faith, but lots of, and even the people who are not of like faith, I respect them highly. If they're even Muslims, I respect them highly. They have their one wives, they're devoted to their mosque and their prayer time. They're very respectful, they're kind, they're thoughtful people. And then the ones who I'm really close to, they're Christians, one wife and kids and household being taken care of. So it's just like when women or people say all men are dogs. I will say to people, who are these men? Where do you meet them and where are you entertaining them? So to answer your question, about knowing and entertaining men who don't work. No, no, I wouldn't, and I'm not gonna do that.
Would you help a man that was on his was going through a transition. He wasn't working, and he wants to work, but he's unemployed, and he has been unemployed for 5 or 6 months. Is that the sort of man? Would you entertain something like that, a situation like
Okay.
that?
I like the way you have rephrased the question. Because your first question said, would I help him? And that would be a resounding yes. Absolutely. Help, support, coach, mentor, be a good friend. And then you said, the last question you said was, would I entertain a man who is not working? Um, I have good intentions. So I believe I might be prone to want to think I should say yes. And you know what? Because we have good intentions, we may even be open to trying. But I also know it's not a great place to start, simply because I wholeheartedly believe in the philosophy that the man should lead, the man should be the priest, the man should be in charge. And sometimes the household becomes out of order when the woman is already in a place which is either financially, materially, or socially more dominant than the male. And I would not want to put myself or my partner in that position. I wouldn't. And not that I could respect, I could listen to somebody who wasn't working for a moment. But if the person was in transition, like I really have to think carefully, and not because of who I am, but who
Hmm.
the man is and who he should be. So I'd have to be careful. I would never want to place a man in a position where he can't lead or he feel he can't lead. And so, as a woman, I have to be very conscious as somebody who
You're a
sometimes,
traditional woman, Diana, and don't make out that you're the norm, okay? You're a traditional woman, and I'll leave it at that. I will ask you this question. Do you think, as time's gone on, there are more, if you were to look at the last 40 years and you were to go and ask students, do they identify, as a different gender or what their sexual preferences were, there'd be so much difference between 40 and 50 years ago. And do you think it's the food? What do you ascribe to that difference?
um, erosion of values. Erosion of values. We have just changed and redefined society. And the more liberal we become, is the more prominent certain values become. So, in an attempt to make everyone feel comfortable and to appease everyone, and sometimes with a lessening of values. You know what we talked about? I think it was today at work or yesterday. On Monday was Easter Monday. And there's a lady who's getting ready to retire this year. And we found out today at lunch that she's 70. I couldn't believe it. She looks amazing. And she's been working for a long time. And because there was a bit of confusion growing up in Jamaica, we got Good Friday and Easter Monday. And we always consider the week to be holy. And there was a reverence around Good Friday, Easter Sunday, and Easter Monday. Even if you went to the beach on Easter Monday, you knew it was a holiday and it was sacred. Now, here in Canada, it's a federal holiday, but it's not given, and most persons don't get it. So I was at work on Monday, and her and I were talking about that, and I said to her, and she said to me, she's sure that Easter Monday used to be a holiday, and I said to her, I am sure too. I am sure, and I'm only in my 40s. I am sure, and she's 70, and I said to her, because there was another gentleman who we needed to do business with. And I said, he didn't, he wasn't available because he took the day. And I said, isn't it interesting that societies that are largely Christian and largely hold on to certain values will hold on to certain days and make them sacred. And then societies that are less Christian move away from that. What am I saying? The way we define families, the way we define identity, the way we define gender is going to be defined by two things: biology and or values around religion. And I believe there has been a shift. I would say, I wouldn't go back as far as 40 years. I would say 20 years. There was a shift. And even more so now, there's a shift in the last 10 years. And then if I,
Little view, Diana.
yes, absolutely. I'd love to hear your view.
So, because of the bacon provided in Walmart, Target, and these places, what has happened is that this role wherein you have these the traditional family is broken down, and the women are the center of creation to me. So that's how I
Right.
look at it. Women, I mean, a man puts his seed in a woman and says, "Look after my seed." So you house it, but when it comes to the creation, it's about woman. And because of this abundance of bacon, yeah, automatically being put in these places, this whole battle of masculine toxicity that they talk about and all of this bashing male, I can do it all by myself. And what happens is over time, and in the universities being over liberal as well, you have these these issues keep on coming up. But these men, these strong men, the need for them are going because the society doesn't require the meat to be cut and put on the shoulder and brought home. And over time, you have these women, I think, having, if they have children, we're losing this whole bond of a man in the home, a man, a manly man. We're at a stage now where, and I don't want to be political, but the definition of a woman, I've been hearing arguing by liberals. I'm like, not being able to say what a woman is. So my point is, as time has gone on, once you start eroding these roles, and then these kids that have no guidance, no man in the home, no need for a man in the home, they've always seen mommy work hard, blah 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 blah. After a while, that need goes away. With the food that they're eating now, they're not even running down women the way they did. You walk, when you were in Jamaica and you walk past a building site, the amount of men that catcall you, pretty girl, psst, psst, that's gone. It's seen as primitive. I'm just trying to say, we're losing that. Men are can't even approach a woman now. They'd rather get in your inbox. You see what I'm saying? They took away
Yep.
the natural hunting instincts from males. And look at us now.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think it is gone? Because you said they took it away. Is the natural instinct gone?
Well, I think there are some men that are still out there. Um, and fortunately, you find a lot of biblical men still holding that sort of, I'm going to protect my family. But men put their life on the line for their family. That's what they expected to do and all of this sort of stuff.
Yes.
And when you get into this situation wherein we're all getting emotional, if you go to any of these big prisons and you go through and interview all of them guys, 85, 90% of them grew up in fatherless homes
Yeah.
with a strong mother, if you know what I'm trying to say. So whenever I look at life, I look at marriage rates and fathers in the homes, and whatever group, because I'd never look at color, whatever group has that union, you will notice financially they'll do better, the kids will make better choices, by proportional representation.
So I have a question then. So your concern then is more or less by and large with the black man. Is it the black man and the diminishing of the role of the black man in the home? Is your concern with the
Yes,
black man?
but not only the black man, it's happening to men, period. And
Yeah.
in us doing that to men, period, by taking away their testicular fortitude and manliness, what we're doing is we've become a society wherein the person with the most disadvantages, so to speak, social disadvantages. I tick all of these boxes and I have anxiety. All of a sudden, you're like the hero. We've got too emotional. I'm just trying to say the hierarchy worked and now we're tipping the balance to another end and I don't know where it's going.
Yeah. I think those are valid arguments. But and this is why sometimes our views can be very skewed. And I admit, even when I travel to Nigeria, and even when not Nigeria, I'm very sorry, when I travel to Ghana, I tell people, here in Canada, we talk about privilege and we talk about intersectionality. And I recognize that even as a Black woman, I am very, very privileged. And I'm privileged from my position of just being educated. I'm privileged by working with educated people. I also believe that my faith makes me privileged. I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, so many of the people that I am around are married, and most of them, at least 90% of them, are Black men and Black women. And we're talking, like, I have very good friends who are, if I'm like 32, married, a whole host of them, 32, 33, 34, 35. And I see a lot of Black men around me doing what you say the world needs, the mentorship. I run a tutoring program, and I have two males on my team. Two males. One is a firefighter, and well, EMS, and training to be a firefighter. One is also training to be an educator. And these are men who believe in pouring to other boys, doing football with them, having them over for supper, just playing with them and talking. And these are men of faith, and they're not boring. And then even older men in our church, like our pastor or elders, and these are men who are, more mature, right? You did say much older. And what they're doing, they're fellowshipping with young people. They're finding ways to teach them music. They're finding ways to teach them about different sports. They're finding ways just to teach them the word and sit with them and build relationship. No, I've not named hunting. Notice I've not named hunting. I haven't.
Hmm.
But the values that they share are manly because they expose values of like integrity, honesty, faithfulness, leadership in the home, the man being in charge, the man being the head of the household. And so I recognize that I do come from a very privileged position where I'm seeing some of the things you're talking about. I work in a faculty of lots of men, engineers, and I do believe most or all of them are married. They're not all Christians either. So I don't want to say it's just Christian men leading households. We're talking about Canada, so lots of the men are from like Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa. So lots of people who don't share the same faith, but they are married, they have households, and lots of those cultures as well. The male still maintain a very dominant role in those households, and they're respectable people, people leading their homes, and people who are in charge. So I know what you're saying. There's a gap, there's a threat, and it breaks my heart because then I have to now consider my neighbors down south and then think about the people. Then maybe is this more like a different reality? And then I have to reflect on my home own country, Jamaica, and just reflect on then in terms of the marriage rate there, which you're correct. How many other women are married? How
Hmm.
many other women, not even just married, but common law and with parents in the house? And another thing that we found out is some of what we believe to be true is also sometimes stereotype and a narrative which we need to challenge.
Hmm.
There may be more men in the household than we know.
Hmm.
Simply because these women are not married, don't mean there's not men in it. But lots of Jamaican children, I believe, have their parents in the house. I'm fortunate. My two sisters are married, and um, their husband lives in the household. And I tell one of my sisters, she has two boys, and I say to her, I feel like she's very privileged. Honest, they take a lot of vacation as family, so they're not wealthy people.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking vacation to the States or anywhere, just right in Jamaica. And the kids feel privileged. We go down to Westmoreland, we go down to Mayfields, Mayfair Falls, and we go
Hmm.
to their grandparents' house, and they have mom and dad. And I always say to her, I said, I feel like your children are so blessed. And when you hear them complaining on her, and when you hear them running to dad, and when you hear dad putting the order in the house, I say to her, I'm just so happy for them, right? Same thing with my older sister. She's also privileged. She's married, and when I say privilege, I'm not using it in a bad way. I'm saying they're blessed to have
Hmm.
something that most people don't have, or some people don't have, and you just have to take care of that and tend to that, right? But
Do you
yeah, go ahead.
do you ever feel like a victim?
Rarely.
I don't. Even when
I
I
don't.
even when I go for a job and don't get it,
Yeah.
I always say, Roger, you need to do better, irrespective of what people want to say and ascribe the reason why I didn't get the job. I just think I don't put everything on race, because I believe that if you start doing things like that, you might as well lie down in your bed and don't get up.
Right.
Yeah. So that's.
But still, race is real, and
Mhm.
and the black man has had more challenges, or the black man is one of those groups that have been disenfranchised. Right? We
I
didn't
agree.
start at the same place. We didn't start on the same block. There are entire groups of people because we're all just one
Well,
human
well,
race.
well.
So
The
we're
argumentative side of me will say, well, it's all about time frames. You know what I mean? The Moors were big in Europe at one point in time. You know what I mean? It's all about time frames and when you want to bring things back to a certain date. But don't get me wrong, I
yeah.
do understand how important it is. But my lack of faith says to me, we're all human beings, and I try not to clump us in groups, because I find myself, and I found myself on the outside being black, Jamaican, and not of faith, and feeling the fact that I had to hide it, even though I was baptized. I've read the Bible from cover to cover twice. I used to go to church 4 days a week. The moral of the story is, why should I hide the fact of the way I feel about religion and God and all of this stuff, and Christianity and Islam and all the others? Why should I hide the way I really feel? And I decided I didn't want to be that guy anymore. I wanted to be. I want to have a conversation. I want to say, "Hey, does this pork taste salty to you?" And I want you as my friend to say, "Yeah." You know.
Okay.
I know you admire my candor, Diana.
I do. And I admire your uniqueness, and I admire your ability to recognize that independent thought, your
Right.
ability to think, and I think that's good ground. It's always good ground because people who are always asking questions will begin to ask the right questions, or they'll ask the questions to get them back to where they need to go, right? Our job is to be gracious in the moment and on their journey with them. So
I've met some friends that know me from primary school, and I always knew I was a little bit quirky. You know, when you speak to people, you try your brain's a little bit different. My line of questioning to get to know people is a little bit different. You probably thought, why is he so inquisitive? Why is he? But it's the way I line the questions and the answers, put you in a certain box, so I know how to operate around you. You know what I mean? And I've always been like that. But so I always knew I was quirky as an adult. And then we there's this 1982 group formed by Loy Ennis and Carmen Brown in my year group, and all of a sudden you started talking to people that know you from 9 years old, and then they start telling you about incidences you had with teachers and stuff, and you realize, wow, it was just meant to be. I was that asshole from those times. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
last question for you. You're alumni. Do you is it what's the alumni like? Do you give to it? Do you feel the need to? Which one of the schools do you give to? Do you feel that you have to? Is that government's job? Where do you stand on all that?
Alumni are such an important part of the fabric of our schools and our society. Do I give to it? I need to do better. So for maybe the last 6 years I've been in Canada, I've been a part of my year group. So my year group is 1999, and we have had our WhatsApp group, we have had Facebook group, we have had so many different things. And the group has managed to fundraise and give back hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last couple of years. And then last year, what we did was we had our 25th reunion. I was on the reunion committee, myself and three other ladies, and we planned an entire weekend in Jamaica. We had our banquet on the Friday, no, get together on the Friday, and then we had a banquet on the Saturday, and then the Sunday I was in charge of the brunch. And we were able to give back to our school. We were able to go down there on Monday, talk to them, Each of the ladies that were present, we were all speakers. We shared our story. We encouraged the Woolmerians that were in from different grades, like from first form to I think maybe fifth form, treat them to lunch, things like that. And then there's Woga, and Woga is 100 and I think 15 years old. I couldn't believe that. Just this week they had their celebration. So that's a Wolmer's Girls Alumni. Very, very active. I think that one of the current president or the president is Faith. And there's just so many stalwarts. There's so many Jamaicans, popular Jamaicans who are Wolmerians. And Wolmers, especially like Douglas Orain, he's on the boys' school side, so strong, does so much for the boys' school, built them an auditorium, allows Wolmer's girls to use their auditorium. So should we be giving back? Absolutely. Does the alumni have a place in terms of school development? Absolutely. I think Manning's, JC, and I know KC are strong schools for that. Wilma's boys have caught up. Lots of the blocks and things they have over there, even the Wilma's girl and different things they have done for the schools and Wilma's prep. Because I don't know, men, that's why I say men are so important. I'll never discount men. Men earn more money than we do. Men work in very high income fields in greater numbers than women do. Tech, software development.
And they'll
We had
do
a
riskier jobs than women would even think of
Yes,
doing.
there's somebody who is into, I think it's software development or something. Very brilliant guy, works in Silicon Valley, made a lot of wealth and decided to share it with the Wilmer's family.
Nice.
And not just Wilmer's boys. The Wilmer's family is like a trust, and what goes into the trust, they tend to support the three schools. And the boys heavily will develop their campus, but they don't just develop the campus and leave the women's girls to struggle. So when we toured it with Miss Montague, she showed us different projects that donations from just women and girls, and especially men. There was that gentleman that went into tech and just really did well and donated. I need to find that article because it's so worthy. We shared it a couple of times in our group. So worthy to be shared. And he donated money. And I think that's going to make a significant difference in terms of like computers. Oh, and solar. I think they're using it to do their solar heating system, um, or to set up different technologies. But a lot of what we have accomplished, we have managed to accomplish collaboratively, as an alumni, and heavily with the boys' school supporting the girls' school. And I think that's something we have to say loudly and proudly and record, because we're not a co-head school.
Hmm.
Different principals, different operations, but the trusts are very, very significant, and the alumni. So I'm a part of it. Membership is just a small fee. They ask persons to be paid up. This month they have a challenge. Like they've thrown something out, I think, for the number of
When you
years.
say when you say it's a small fee, what are we talking about, or is it a secret?
I think it's like 3-5 Jamaican
3,500 Jamaican. Wow.
annually.
Oh.
And then what they'd use that to do is pool all the resources together. And then each year, like they support everything. Like
Hmm.
if the hockey team has a tournament, if the lacrosse, I didn't even know we have lacrosse team in Jamaica. Like our girls do so well. And they will put it in the group and they'll say, oh, there's a girl on the lacrosse team who doesn't have any equipment, and the group does fundraise immediately. A girl maybe need 13,000 worth of equipment, which to somebody living in Canada and America, there's not a lot of money, not a lot of money. Might be 13,000, but a few people may say, can I get the account number? And we contribute, and ladies in the group contribute. If members are sick, the group contributes and supports and prays. Members pass away. Members go to the funeral service. They have Wilmer's Days. They have the opening of Champs. Whenever Champs is about to open, they
Hmm.
have their Sunday service. They pray for the track team. And so I'm actively in the group. I'm actively in the WhatsApp. But I would say definitely, can I do more? Absolutely. Should I be doing more? Absolutely.
My last question for you, Miss Sharp,
Yes, sir.
is more of a social one. So when I listen to dancehall music, I
Yes.
believe that the guys are talking about what's going on in their community, whether they're making it up. It's where the inspiration's coming from. It's where they're living. And if we have better examples, the lyrics might be better. Do you think the crime and violence in a country like Jamaica in certain areas could be attributed at all to the music?
It would have to
Nice.
be a small part. I think
Okay.
at the heart of who I am, I think I'm an untrained sociologist or I'm an untrained anthropologist. And I see people and I see factors and I understand the dynamics. And it would be a hasty judgment, and it would also be inaccurate. When you meet a guy and if you should interview men who've gotten into trouble, you have named some of the other factors which are more potent. If you interview somebody who just robbed a store and said, "Come here, man, brethren, why you do it? Talk to me, man. Like, take me back, like how you have interviewed me. Take me back to grade primary school, grade 3. Talk to me when you go to school. What was that like? You'd have lunch money, like who did I look out for you? Who wash your clothes, iron your uniform, and then you bring him back up to the present and you say, talk to me, what this come from? Like, what is about?
No, you
You're gonna
sound like
find
a
that
no, you sound like a Kingstonian. Go on with it.
that's not how Kingstonians speak. But you would find out from him that it's a multiplicity of factors, multiplicity. And a big part of it would be economic. He would say to you, he would say to you, I'm stealing because maybe you need it. Maybe he's hungry, right? Or him have a need, or him see it and him could have take it. Or is a philosophical approach where he thinks the system is unjust. So, quite
Take it.
frankly, me not see nothing wrong with taking it because other people are thief. They'll be quick to tell you politicians are stealing, police is stealing. So listen to me. He's a small man, it's just a small wheel in the whole thing. That's one view. That could
Yeah.
be a philosophical view. And then you have alluded to it, the broken homes. You don't have a male figure, you don't have structure. And then women try all they could, and sometimes people do what they want to do. And then we also have to remember that we're not going to be able to explain everything to a factor outside of God, whether we want to admit it or not. There is something in this world called sin. We live in a sinful world where people have sinful desires, and so sometimes people do things that boggles and defies parenting. You do all you can do and your child does something very abhorrent, something you couldn't even imagine. Like you said, why would you hurt somebody? Why would you stab somebody, harm somebody, unalive somebody? Why? And it's just because sometimes, and it's a whole bunch of things. And then lean into that then will be the mental health. How are our men doing? What kind of outlets they have to talk things through? And then you may have another small sect that never had anybody. You had two amazing young men on that Sherpa bus. You have then another small subsect, didn't have anybody, didn't have any father, no grandfather, no mother, running up and down the streets of Kingston, running up and down the streets of Montego Bay. And maybe for them, they heard some music that said, man for this, man for that, man for the whatever. And so that becomes their influence. That becomes their turning point. That becomes that thing that says, shift and move in another direction. So instead of turn this way for good and show up for work and be the best that you can be, it becomes, well, this is my inspiration. I don't have anybody else to speak life into me. And so there's an allure then for me. And especially for crimes that are crimes of profit, you find will be attracted to music, right? So crimes of like scamming, robbery, those things, because the music glamorize like things, cars and gold chain and wealth and drips and bling and all kind of things.
Does Canada know what gem they have in Diana Sharp?
I don't know, but I hope so.
I hope so
I
too.
don't. I hope so.
I really hope
I
so
hope
too.
so.
Hey, and
I
it
hope so.
didn't go amiss that I mentioned the Sherpa bus.
No.
That I was even the fact that you remembered it was a Sherpa. It
Yeah.
it 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 tells me something about you. It puts you in a special box. You know what I mean? It's because I mentioned it an hour ago. Hey Dinah, thank you for spending the time and blessing my little platform I really appreciated talking to you. And, it's amazing. You think you know somebody, but it's only when you get in the True Blue Lounge you get to know them.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had some alcohol in you, some wine. Imagine what a conversation we would have,
I
eh?
don't need it, right? All of the things you have named is a spirit, and I have a spirit in me. So I don't need that, right? And the spirit comes to teach all things and to give you understanding, grace, love. And so no, I think I'm okay, right?
This is great.
Yeah.
This is great. And I've really, really, really enjoyed speaking to you. I don't know. I enjoy speaking to the ladies even more because I get to speak to so little ladies because of the fact that I think women are a little bit more closeted and men
Yeah.
are just out there. We don't care. We're
We
here
just
for a little
talk.
time. Let's get it over and done with. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Diana. Thank you very much, darling.
Thank you so much, Roger.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Take care.